Hello, and welcome to the 2020 Leadership Awards presented by PayPal and Searchlight Capital. Tonight, we are honoring JA champions and leaders in the worlds of business and public service that help make our vital work possible. To start the festivities, I'd like to introduce a special guest and JA alumna who will be talking with our 2020 Student of the Year, Aya Ibrahim.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm JuJu Chang. I'm the co-anchor at ABC News Nightline. But more importantly, I am a very proud Junior Achievement alum from California from many years ago, many moons ago in a galaxy far, far away. If you tuned into Monday Night Celebration, you saw that Aya Ibrahim, who's a senior at the Academy of Finance and Enterprise High School, was selected as the 2020 JA New York Student of the Year, so well deserved. And part of her prize, she will receive $10,000 in scholarship funds for college tuition. So congratulations, Aya.
Thank you, JuJu. I'm so excited, and it's an honor to be JA Student of the Year, knowing that all of my hard work and everything that I've done so far paid off, and taking opportunities and really putting it on that path. And it's a pleasure to be part of JA.
Excellent. So I want to just be in conversation with you. I'll ask you a question. You can ask me a question. We can talk about how much we appreciate junior achievement. But I want to start with what motivated you to get started and participate in JA, and what you think you most valued from the experience.
What made me really take that decision and join JA was because of my whole story of being a first-generation immigrant and having the struggles of finding my path and finding the right fit for me. I found that JA was really an eye-opening experience and gave me the right path to every opportunity I needed to make sure I am college and career ready and take on my journey with confidence and being ready with every skill I need to take on my next path.
Do you have a question for me?
Yeah. I was wondering how JA programs for you, how eye-opening they were and how they helped you in your path too.
To where I am as a journalist? Well, what's interesting is that, like you, I competed in junior achievement competition. And I think it helped me in a lot of different ways. And really those ways became more and more obvious as I got further and further away from junior achievement. Some of it was it gave me confidence. Some of it was it opened my worldview because I met for the first time professionals who were in the business world who it wasn't so much networking. It was more like they were opening up a world of possibilities for me. And then on top of that, the sheer competition allowed me to, compete in speaking contests or compete in my company. And we went on to national competition. And that was a really big part of sort of growing my high school resume, if you were to describe it that way. And I know that you, Aya, wrote about college readiness and how that was helpful in your participation in JA. What did you mean by that? How do you think it helped you in this senior year process of applying for colleges and getting ready to fly the coop?
One of the programs I participated in was JA Career Success, and the skills I took from that program really pinpoint on the skills I needed, such as soft and hard skills. And being college and career ready, you need time management. You need to understand your leadership skills. All of these need to come forward when you go on in your next path. Things like include the diversity and inclusion within the workforce and within the classroom, and understanding career planning and opening my eyes to career explorations, because when I started my senior year applications, it was hard to narrow down on one career path that I wanted to pursue. But with the JA Career Success program that I did, one of my mentors just asked me one question was, imagine your day, how it would look like if you worked in that specific job or in that specific field. And I think that question really made me think about what type of field I want to go to and what type of work I wanted to pursue, and combining my passions in everything that I'm planning on later down the road.
Amazing. And I know that you are interested in entrepreneurship and that the college program, or rather the JA program, helped you in that sense. What's your next question for me?
My next question is, when you were deciding on what career path you want to take, how did that process go for you? And was it easy? Was it hard? And yeah.
It was hard. It was painful. When I got to college, I thought I was going to be an engineer because I grew up in Silicon Valley and I was going to be like Steve Jobs and go to Apple Computer or whatever. And I promptly flunked my college physics. And at the same time, I got an A+ in political science. And at that point, I realized, I really like the storytelling aspect of I think that's what I enjoyed about JA, was that I was telling a story every time I was selling a product or selling my company. And JA had outlets for speech contests, so I did that. And so I was honing my current events and all of that. And so I was able to draw on those skills and translate that into journalism. And so it was fairly seamless. By the time I ended college, I had written for the college paper. I was news director at the college radio, and I landed, an entry-level job at ABC News right out of college.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so for you, what do you think you talked about the business plan and the competition that you had within Junior Achievement. How do you think that helped you?
I think the business plan really opened my eyes to understanding how to sell my product. And it doesn't matter what career I want to go to, like for example, engineering or even medicine. Understanding how to deliver a product to someone, deliver a product to a company, understanding your budget when you're selling something. Every skill that I learned from my business plan really transferred on to my mindset and anything I wanted to pursue later.
And I know that your parents, you would be the first, you immigrated as a family from Egypt, and you would be the first in your family to go to the college in the United States. So to be able to have advisors around you who could help you navigate that process, I would imagine was helpful.
Definitely. Having resources to guide me through this process was crucial for me to understand what's coming on later, because the process in the US is definitely very different from back home, and my parents didn't have much knowledge, and I was very happy that JA, in every program that I participated in, I was able to not say network, but really communicate with other individuals to help me understand what's coming ahead and what steps I need to take to really own my college readiness and career readiness.
Excellent. Do you have another question for me?
One question I had was because you're also first generation immigrant, and definitely the college process was very difficult. How did you try to balance it out when you first came in?
Well, I think that, again, Junior Achievement helped me dream, actually, and to think, you know what, I did well enough in Junior Achievement competitions that I made it to a national stage, and it allowed me to reach for the stars when it came to applying for college. And I remember, this was the olden days, Aya, when, parents, and I don't know how involved your parents were, but my parents had very little input, and maybe it was partly because they were immigrants too. I was sort of on my own doing the college application. And I remember when I got the acceptance letter from Stanford University, I was thinking that I was super grateful that I had all those years of experience with Junior Achievement, because it demonstrated my commitment and my hard work and my dedication to something. And that's what is great about JA. It allows you to enter in and do as much or as little as you want. But I want to ask you one final question, Aya, because I know I read your application for Student of the Year, and you wrote very poignantly about an injury that you faced, because I know that you're a gymnast as well. And overcoming adversity, especially after we've all lived through this year of pandemic, is a really important trait that we should all obviously aspire to. And I wonder what you think you and young people in your generation look towards as you see past the pandemic and beyond 2020 into the future.
One thing that I really hope we try to solve in the next couple of years is this problem with first generation immigrants, that they come in and they struggle trying to find resources. They struggle trying to fit in, and the adversities they face. It's huge amount of challenges they have to go through, and I really hope in the next couple of years that when we make a stand and we project our own stories and project our own voice to show them that nothing is impossible. I went through that process, and with hard work, determination, and just pushing yourself through in every step of the way and taking every door that opens up, everything is possible.
That is such a lovely way to wrap up this conversation. Aya, is there any final thoughts you have for me or any questions you want to ask before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I would love to know your role models growing up. As your story is very inspiring. I would love, what was the motive behind your success?
You know, it's interesting. Right now, we're going through questions of media representation, and I work in the media, obviously, and I think media representation matters. And that's because role models matter. And that's why role models within junior achievement are so important, because again, even if you don't look exactly like that person, it's somebody who you can relate to and grow towards. But for me personally, my role model was Connie Chung. She was a trailblazing Asian American woman in broadcast, and she inspired so many young Asian Americans like myself, a generation, maybe two generations of them. And I've since had the pleasure of becoming friends with Connie. And of course I had to, tell her like, oh, Connie, you inspired me and you're my role model. And she said, JuJu, if I had a nickel for every Asian American girl who ever told me that, I'd be really, really rich. And I think that just goes to show at how we are all drawn towards our North Stars, to navigate in those directions. It's really important. And I know that we often use our parents as role models in that way, but it's important to be able to see adults around us who are doing things that inspire us and see again a world of possibilities. So I want to thank you, Aya, congratulate you again, and I want to thank everyone involved in Junior Achievement and taking part in this convening, and have a great rest of your day.
And now I'm delighted to have the opportunity to present this year's Leadership Award to Dan Schulman, President and CEO of PayPal. At PayPal, Dan is focused on democratizing and transforming financial services and e-commerce to improve the financial health of billions of people, families, and businesses around the world. With extensive experience in payments and mobile technology, Dan is leading PayPal to reimagine how people move and manage money, how merchants and consumers interact and transact. Under Dan's leadership, PayPal has been named as one of the top companies in Just Capital's and Forbes' Just 100 list, featuring companies doing right by America. Among his many awards and recognitions, Dan is the recipient of the 2017 Brennan Legacy Award, established to honor the Supreme Court Justice and his career-long commitment to social justice and common human dignity. Dan's leadership at the helm of PayPal has sealed the company's reputation as a tremendous force for financial empowerment and a forward-looking corporate citizen committed to giving back. Junior Achievement of New York is proud to partner with PayPal in our work to empower young people, and we are delighted to present this year's Leadership Award to Dan Schulman. Recently, I had an opportunity to sit down with Dan and speak with him about some important leadership and societal issues. Let's take a look. I'm thrilled to be joined now by Junior Achievement of New York's 2020 Leadership Award honoree, Dan Schulman, President and CEO of PayPal. Dan, we're so happy to be honoring you with this award and so grateful that you could spend some time with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here with you, Joe.
Dan, your work and career really tie together so many of the themes that we have been discussing throughout the summit over the last couple of days. And PayPal's mission is about democratizing access to financial services, which leads to improving the financial health of individuals, families, and businesses around the world. But underpinning all of this is really the idea of creating pathways to economic mobility. So I really want to start out by asking you, what are some ways do you think we can ensure that economic mobility is possible for more people and more communities?
Yep. Well, again, Joe, let me just thank you and Junior Achievement and all the students for this honor. I really greatly appreciate it. And it's so nice to be able to spend a little bit of time with everybody. I think that financial health is foundational to not just the health of our economy, but really the health of our democracy. I think, democracy is always about rising above your own self-interest, thinking about the betterment of the whole. My favorite quote about democracy is, it needs to be more than two wolves and one lamb voting on what to have for dinner. But if people struggle every single month to make ends meet, they're financially stressed, they think the system isn't working for them anymore, that threatens the bedrocks of capitalism. It threatens the bedrocks of our democracy, our political system. And so I don't think there's anything that is more important from a foundational level than financial health. And really, that really depends on financial literacy, people understanding what it means to be financially healthy. It is those of us who are in some position of power enabling all communities to have investment in them, to be able to exercise entrepreneurial skills, to be able to develop a healthy environment and community and family that they have. And then finally, as we're moving into the digital economy, we need to use technology in all of its forms to lower the cost of everyday transactions so that managing and moving money is a right for all citizens, not just a privilege for the affluent.
We've seen this year, the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion really come to the forefront in some very powerful ways. So I want to ask you, how has PayPal embraced these issues as a company and really as a leader in the broader business community?
Well, first of all, I think it's almost ridiculous that we are still, in this day and age, debating about the relative merits of diversity and inclusion. There is one study after another that basically says the more diverse a team is, the more inclusive a team is, the more inclusive a company is, the better they do in serving their customers and the better returns they have for their shareholders. I mean, one of the very first things I did when I came into PayPal is I asked, do we pay equally across gender and across ethnicity? And my lawyers came back to me and said, don't ask that question, because it's very hard to measure. And I said, no, that's absolutely the question I am asking, and I want it answered. And of course, when we did the study, we found out we weren't paying equally. And we found out we had a multi-million-dollar gap between what we were paying between male, female, and between different ethnicities. And they said, well, Dan, now that we found this out, you can close that gap in many years so we don't have a financial hit in any one quarter. And I said to the team, I want to close the gap between pay. I want to close it in a week, not in months, not in years. And why? Because if you want to have the very best team, the most inclusive environment, be able to recruit from the widest pool of applicants possible to get the very best talent, you need to start with respect. You need to start with paying people equally. And then from there, it's about creating an environment around being inclusive, about caring about all people, and This to me is something that is part and parcel of the values of PayPal. Whether it comes from our withdrawing from North Carolina because we thought that a bill passed by the House there would allow for the potential discrimination against somebody for sexual orientation or their sexual identity, to the tragic killing of so many Black people and the resulting despair and determination that came from both our employees and from communities around the country in addressing social justice, in addressing things like the racial wealth gap and our $530 million commitment to fight racial injustice over the long term. Those are things that I think distinguish PayPal and allow us to create an environment that not only attracts the very best people, but tells, the ethos of our company and what we care about.
Well, that certainly is a very, very, very impressive record, and I commend you on that.
Thank you.
You talked about specifically about racial injustice, and I guess I want to ask you, during this past year, when so much of this has unfortunately kind of smacked us right in the face, did you have one aha moment about all of this where it just really hit you about where we are in all of this?
I'm not sure I had one aha moment. When I was growing up, both of my parents were civil rights activists. Some of my earliest memories are my mom pushing me in a baby carriage at civil rights marches. This is in the early 1960s. My dad asked her not to do that because he was afraid I'd be the youngest kid to have their pictures in an FBI file somewhere. I remember my dad having to go down to Pascagoula, Mississippi to confront a plant manager down there who had fired a Black employee who worked for him for drinking at the wrong water fountain. And my mom waiting anxiously by the phone to be sure that my dad had come back from that, had not been beaten up, something bad had not happened to him. And I remember my dad saying to me that it's what we do in the world, not what we say, that matters. And so from a very early part of my life, I've been engaged in all sorts of areas around social justice, around inclusion. And I would say, though, that the outpouring that we saw post George Floyd's death of really desperation and grief and despair, that here we were, the last civil rights movement was in the late 60s, early 60s. And here we were, and things like the racial wealth gap were as wide as ever. And I talked to a number of Black leaders across the United States, my Black colleagues inside of PayPal, and we decided that we weren't just going to be part of the moment, but that we were going to join into a movement that was going to require us to be part of the fight for racial equality and for social justice over the long term, not just now, not just giving millions of dollars to nonprofits who work so hard every single day to help in this area, but to do even more, to basically, as I mentioned before, make a very substantial commitment, over $500 million, to basically try to do our part to address the racial wealth gap, because that's something that PayPal can actually at least make a small difference around in terms of investing in entrepreneurs, investing in communities of color, helping them to grow and develop, investing in community banks. And so I think this is really more of just a continuation, but a real acceleration in that continuation in terms of what I believe in and what I think is so important for our communities and our country to be in enlightened democracy.
Yeah, no, certainly I think the wealth gap is such a critical aspect of ultimately the drive for equality. Want to switch gears a little bit here. Talk about the pandemic. There's been so much conversation about how is this going to alter the way we work as a society. What kind of fundamental changes might we see on this? And so I wanted to just get your take on that. I mean, what do you think is going to be the outcome of the way this affects the world of work going forward?
Yeah, I think the pandemic, first of all, accelerated and exposed a number of trends that have been happening for quite some time. I think it rapidly accelerated the digitization of one industry after another. I mean, here we are in this sort of weird virtual setting, instead of being at, a gala. The entertainment industry has been fundamentally changed. Medicine, telemedicine has been fundamentally changed. Education, the fact that we're doing so much more remote learning. The retail has changed completely. Last year during the holiday season, 30% of all sales were done online. This year, almost 70% of sales were done online. And when I talk to the CEOs of major retailers across the world, they don't think that we're going back to a 30% in, online, 70% in store. They think we have permanently shifted towards more of an online world than an offline world. And I think that blurring of online and offline has been accelerated by 3 to 5 years at a minimum. And I think that's going to continue. And I think post-vaccines, post the pandemic, I don't ever think we go back to the way that it was. Some people are saying that we're going back to a new normal. I think that's not necessarily the right way to characterize it. I think we're going into a new paradigm that's been informed by what's happened during the pandemic. We've seen an exposure of the sharp differences between various communities, between people who are underserved and have suffered disproportionately as a result of the pandemic. We've seen the rise of technology in terms of how it can redefine both financial services and industries across the world. And it's going to fundamentally change the way that we work. There's no question about it. I don't talk to any CEOs that believe 100% of their employees are going back to the office. I think you're going to probably have 20 to 30% of employees who work full-time back in an office, maybe 20% of employees who work completely remotely, and then all the rest, some hybrid form, maybe 2 days at the office, 3 days at home, 3 days at the office, 2 days back at work. But I think we need to fundamentally rethink the way we work and the way industries across the world will function. And by the way government and higher education will function as well.
Dan, I know we're drawing close to the end of our time here. So what I'd like to do perhaps is just tie this back a little bit to the work we do at Junior Achievement. And you alluded a little bit to this before, but maybe we can have an additional conversation on it. How does a better understanding of financial literacy and entrepreneurship really help young people not only become more empowered about their own future, but really extend to fostering overall economic growth and development on a macro level. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's kind of essential for all of us to be part of the world that we live in. I mean, first of all, understanding financial literacy, how to save, where to invest. If you want to live your dreams in whatever way, shape, or form they may be, having financial health as that bedrock of your life is so crucial. And without financial literacy, there's no way that can happen. It's sort of like step one for that to happen. Then when I think about entrepreneurship, I think the first word that comes to my mind with entrepreneurship, because I've been an entrepreneur many a time, is resilience. Because you need to be organized. You need to have a vision. You need to be organized to have a plan. You're going to execute against that vision. You need to be sure that you've got the right funding behind you, that kind of thing. But no matter how organized you are, what you think is going to happen and what happens are two entirely separate things. And often you will get, I'm a big mixed martial artist. I've been doing this all my life. Anytime you get into a fight, you will get punched. There's no question about it. Anytime you try to do something on your own, anything in life, frequently you get hit hard. It's something that wasn't your fault or could have been your fault. It doesn't really even matter. It's a matter of resilience. How do you get back up on your feet? How do you think under pressure? And I think this idea of entrepreneurship, which most people think about as like starting your own business, I think is really all about life skills and really important life skills. And so I think being able to have financial literacy, being able to have a sense of what it means to be an entrepreneur and how you extend that to all parts of your life in terms of who you are as a person. How authentic are you as a person? How resilient are you as a person? How empathetic, how respectful are you as a person? I think these are the skill sets in life that all of us need to always learn and think about. We never know it all. We should always think of ourselves as not know-it-alls, but learn-it-alls, because I find, especially through martial arts, that the more I know, really the less I know. And the more that forces me to be humble about how much more there is to still understand. And I think having that openness to learning and understanding is going to help all of us in this room to achieve the best we can in our lives.
Well, especially during this pandemic, we've been impressing upon the young people that we work with about the fact that grit, resilience, perseverance is as important, if not more important, than the actual knowledge and skills that you acquire throughout life. So I think that's a great place for us to end our conversation. Dan, I want to thank you again for being with us today, for accepting our award, our leadership award for 2020 at Junior Achievement of New York. And also thank you for your leadership, not only at PayPal, which is a company that we are just absolutely thrilled and proud to be associated with, but really in the larger corporate community in general. You're a visionary and a leader, and we thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for the honor. It means a ton to me and inspires me to keep trying to do the things that we're doing.